Well, it's getting cold now. It's winter's definitely coming. Bit of frost, dark times, you know, wake up in the dark, go home in the dark. That's coming. Not looking forward to that. That for me I think is the worst thing about England, is the fact that sometimes I have to wake up in the dark and go home in the dark and just do not get enough sunlight. Sunlight does just change the mood of the day. You know, winter mornings you're always up and sometimes a bit slow and a bit sluggish. And that's what's coming. You know, cozy jackets and jumpers and coats. Absolutely wonderful on a weekend, nice and cozy. But on a work day, it's not what you want. But anyway, this morning I was thinking about people who run away from the pain. You know, I come across this account on Instagram that interviews homeless people, or interviews people who suffered with addiction or extreme trauma like rapes and abuse and stuff like that. And you know, hearing these people speak who have actually been through some shit, unlike me, it's different to hear what they've got to say and how they are, and how much they're in their own world, and they have no faith and they have no belief in the world, which is understanding because you've been through something awful. How can you have faith in something when it almost feels like the world's let you down? But what the common thing I saw in all these people and interviews is, even though they're talking about it open and honestly, their actions are that they're avoiding dealing with anything. Now, don't get me wrong, never been through anything like that, won't go through anything like that. I'm probably not the guy to talk about what they should do and stuff like that, but I obviously have thoughts about it, and I think about running away from pain and how it never works. You know, who you become when you run away from pain is worse than the pain itself. You know, most of the time these people are probably inflicting, not every time, but a lot of the time these people are inflicting pain on multiple other people because of their actions, because of how they're reacting, because of how they are. Whereas these people could be the sort of role models that help other people who go through tough stuff, real tough stuff. You know, I have a limit on what I can talk about, like I'm talking about now, and I'm a bit wary about what I'm saying because I'm not the person going through it. Whereas these people that actually go through it, God, if they get through it, they get through the pain, the lessons, the stories they can tell and teach, you know, every person could learn from them. And I think about that a lot, about the homeless and about drug addicts and people who are literally on rock bottom. And they're the stories you want to hear. They're the stories you want to think, how did they figure it out? Because us, who's, you know, in a nice house, in a nice car, got food every day, nice clothes, you know, aren't freezing in the winter when we're outside. What can we really learn in comparison to these people that are on the streets and suffering so much? You know, with great suffering comes great teachings, because most of the time you want to get out of the suffering. And I think one day I would like to speak to some homeless people, because I can't relate to it at all. And I wonder what the mindset is, because sometimes I think about me and I think it's all good preaching and saying what all these things that I do and having all these thoughts when you're wrapped up in a bubble, in a safe bubble. You know, how many of my thoughts can actually be applied to people who are in extreme suffering? How many of those people would this information help? Will it help, or do you have to figure out a different way of thinking when you've got extreme circumstances? But I've always thought that when you suffer, not always thought, that's where I was pausing on that. In the last year, I've thought, when you're suffering through something, you can never run. I've always thought you can never run. I always know that, even though I've done it. You know, you want to avoid the things that make you uncomfortable. It's just naturally what you do. You know, they wouldn't be uncomfortable if you weren't avoiding them. But once you start getting a few little things you're trying to avoid, you start actually going through them. You start actually not avoiding it. You start piling a little few up. You know, the first one takes a long time. You know, me opening up about my feelings for the first time to my parents and saying, you know what I mean, I actually do struggle in life and I do keep everything in. You know, that was a massive hurdle. But you know, that took all my life to do. Once you notch that one, you're on to the next one. You know, you're telling multiple other people this and this, you know, makes you feel uncomfortable, but you do it. And then you start doing this, you start dreaming about this, and then you start posting, and you know, there's always going to be something that you're avoiding, something that makes you uncomfortable. And I think one of the quotes I've heard in the past, it's from Alex Hormozy. Oh, well, he said his wife said it, Layla Hormozy, and she said, fear is a lake that's a mile wide and an inch deep. And I do sort of agree with that. I do see that, because it looks massive, but you know, when you're actually in it, you can deal with it. You can do it. You know, I think about these people on the streets and what they're going through, rather than just surrendering to the pain and trying to figure it out, trying to work it out, rather than using these drugs or these other methods of dealing with it. You know, realistically, on paper, you say it's actually better to deal with this, because you're going to spend so many years being this bad way, on drugs, on the streets, doing all these bad things, that if you just actually did less and did nothing and just sat with it and sat with the pain, you'd actually end up being better off in a time perspective if you're on paper. And I get it, there's a whole load of factors involved with it. It can't just be as simple as that. I know, I obviously understand that, but it's like the first step that you have to do. You have to let go, almost. And obviously people around you, if you have people around you, that helps. And I think that's an important factor for them. The way on these videos that I'm seeing, a common theme I'm seeing is they don't have anyone. But they also probably push people away. The behaviours probably push people away. So it's going to take a rare person to sit and try and help them out. But even if you're not in that extreme position, you have to surrender to whatever it is that's on your mind that's going to be hard. No matter how long it takes. It could take a year. But you've got to work on little steps. What's the next thing you can do to surrender to it? Or you can just take that big jump. And then you'll realise, I think when you do enough of them, I'm not at that stage yet, when you do enough of them, you realise, yeah, it is a lake, mile wide and an inch deep. And it's not that bad when you, it's almost like a muscle, I think. I can see the feeling. I can see what it's like, that feeling of, oh, I don't want to do that. It's like jumping off a cliff into some water. For me, I relate to, that's the exact same feeling as when you've got to do something uncomfortable. You know, I tell someone something, you got to say something, you got to do something. It's the same sort of feeling. But once you start training that muscle, you start getting used to it, and you start being able to be a bit more confident, a bit more risky. You start, what's the word? You start just taking that leap of faith and understanding that you're going to catch yourself. You have enough confidence in yourself and enough belief in yourself that you know, yeah, sure, it's going to be hard, but when we jump, we're going to catch ourselves and we're going to know what to do. We can handle it. And that's what I've noticed happens. Yet even still with that knowledge, it's still hard to do things, which it's meant to be, because these things are what make you feel like you're living, I guess. But yeah, anyway, that's what I was thinking this morning. So